formidable. They get votes, they get electoral votes. They're there pushing to get greenbacks printed. Poor people, labor unions, which we've dealt with, and people press and press and press for that. Do they get what they want to with greenbacks? No. In fact, there is the crime of '74. And the crime of '74 was the bill passed that says we'll keep about 200 million greenbacks in circulation. Nice. But we'll tie them to the gold standard. Again, starting in 1873, we'll take those dollar bills and make them worth a very definite amount of gold at any point in time. Is that good for our dollar bill? Yes, because anywhere in the world you can go, hey, that dollar's worth something. It's great for the American government. It's great for the American economy. It's bad for the debtor. So essentially in 1874, no longer can we have the opportunity to use dollar bills to inflate. Now, why would a farmer in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s want to inflate? Because the farmer has what? $100 of debt. Why would, again, farmer in your review today have $100 of debt? He homesteaded. He didn't have to borrow any money to get that land. Oh, because of all those other reasons, he has borrowed against his land. He's borrowed money from a bank. The bank has lent him money with the farm itself as collateral for the loan. He owes $100. Now, if dollars are worth less, what happens to my ability to pay my debt? For example, if I sell my corn, my rice, for $10 a bushel, whatever your product is, say it's worth 10 bucks a bushel. If inflation happens, what happens to my ability to pay my debt off? Well, if inflation happens, how much am I getting for my bushel? I'm getting $20 per bushel of grain because money is worth less. I want, if I'm a debtor, if I'm a farmer, I want inflation. I want this dollar bill to be worth half what it was. I don't want hard money. I want inflation. Please print dollars. Well, after 1874, that ain't happening, is it? Is there any other mechanism or means that we look to in the 1870s with which to inflate the American currency? Dollar bills are gone, tied to the gold standard. That'll happen until 1933. Thus, what are we going to do to get the inflation to allow my debt staying the same? It's still $100. But if inflation happens, I get $20 for a bushel, half as easy to pay off my debt. So where do we turn? We turn to gold and silver. Because out west, what do we have? We have gold and silver. Why don't we force the federal government to coin silver? Oh my gosh, let's do that. And what happened was that the federal government started to buy silver and make silver coins out of it. If we buy a whole bunch of silver, make a whole bunch of silver coins out of it, that would be great. The price in the early 1870s for silver was about 8 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. Everyone got that? In the early 1870s, you could get about 8 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. Then what happened? Comstock load. 1870s. What happened to the price of silver? The price of silver goes skyrocketing downward. Why? Boatloads of silver are found in Nevada. Comstock lode, again, you studied it today as part of one of the Western industries. Boatloads of silver pouring in. What happens to the price of silver? It plummets, it skyrockets downward because now to get 1 ounce of gold, you need 32 ounces of silver. Now, wait, the price, no. If silver's worth a lot, then it's 8 ounces for 1 ounce. If silver's worth nothing or less, almost nothing, 32 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. So right now, are we coining a bunch of silver? No, not profitable, not happening. And we demand of the government that they start buying silver and coining it. Ever since this happened, early 1870s, what was the demand of farmers? Unlimited coinage of silver at 16 to 1. Understand that concept. That's the demand from the 1870s on. We need unlimited, meaning the federal government has to buy silver from miners out west. And they have to buy it, and they have to put it on the market at 16 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. Is that what it's really worth? But that's what they want. If you do that, you're going to do what? Get a whole bunch of silver miners out west happy, and a whole bunch of farmer debtors happy, because now they can do what? Get coins in the economy with inflation so as to pay off your debts well. Do we ever get that happening? There are two acts. The Bland-Allison Act of 1878 actually requires the federal government to buy a certain amount of silver and coin it. Did it inflate? No, it did not. And then the Big Act, which was supposed to solve the problem, in 1890. Guess who wrote an act in 1890? Sherman. And in 1890, the Sherman Silver Purchase Act happened. And the Sherman Silver Purchase Act of 1890 required that the federal government buy a certain amount of silver and coin it. The problem was that you had to pay the silver miners in gold. And thus, when economic catastrophe hit in 1893, what happened? Every silver miner says, here's my silver, you have to coin it, you have to put it out in the market, and I need gold. And what happened to the gold reserves of the United States federal government, because they're paying mandatorily a whole bunch of gold out? They dwindled from 100 million down to almost $20 million worth of gold. It almost bankrupted the United States. Now, did we, through greenbacks or coinage of silver, actually inflate the economy? No, not at all. In fact, I will give you the stat in 1 second, I hope. We did not at all inflate over those years. And I'll probably have to do it in class tomorrow. It'll be on the board at the first part of the period. But if you look at the overall supply of money per capita in the United States, it rose by $1 between 1860 and 1900. That means $1 more. Well, that's inflation. People get more money. No, imagine the United States, late 1800s, was there extraordinary wealth created. I mean, wealth created by railroads and by steel and by oil and by technology. All of that creation of money, and yet the amount of actual currency sitting there for people to have increases by $17 to $18 per person. That's not inflation. Recognize who's running policy in America. Rich people. You saw today in class the picture of the United States Senate. So rich people don't like inflation. They like hard money where their money's worth something. Poor people want inflation. Do we win that battle if you're the average poor person in America? No, we don't. And so we might have a political movement to rectify this problem, to change this situation. And that political movement might be called the People's Party, the Populist Party. And we might see some pretty important seismic events happening on the American political spectrum in the 1890s. And we'll see more of that tomorrow.